Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us at our first Hispanic Affairs Council. I am so thrilled you could be with us this morning. This is part of the Chamber's strategic plan for our Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity initiative. So I'm thrilled we could kick it off with the Hispanic Affairs Council. The energy of the steering committee is wonderful. I'm so glad that Ed Ramirez from our staff is also part of the steering committee. I know amazing things are going to come from this, so thank you all for joining us. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ed to say a few words.
All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody, and you know, I'm excited. I'm excited about this committee because I have a passion for the Latino community and really doing outreach through education programs and services. So this team has come together, and Catherine and Lorena have been instrumental with Megan, the president of our chamber, to make this all come together. And we're just excited. And I know that Jessica Padilla is going to be with us today from the housing in Dover. So housing partnership in Dover. So I'm looking forward to just hearing everyone and seeing how we can better serve you and how we can make this committee very effective to really help our Latino community. So I would love it if Catherine, Lorena would introduce themselves, and then they can take it from there, and let's get started.
Lorena, you go. You go. No. You bet. You. Okay. You trump me.
Oh, look at her. She's so nice. Hi, everyone. I'm Lorena Sargent with LWNH Business Solutions. I am totally thrilled to be part of this endeavor. For those of you that don't know, I'm actually first generation here. I was born in Ecuador. My parents immigrated here in 1987. So pretty much this is the only land that I know, but I'm very involved in the Hispanic community, and I would like to get even more involved. It's been a while since in the state of New Jersey since I've actually kind of been able to dive in. And I think with coronavirus hitting the area, I've seen so many businesses in Dover get really impacted by all of this. And traditionally, the Hispanic community is not necessarily always open and willing to take or ask for help. So we're really excited to be part of this. And I'm just, you know, thrilled to be able to take this as the launching platform for other inclusivity and diversity committees that we could possibly have in the chamber. So totally excited about that.
Okay, and I'm Catherine O'Hara, as I always say, the most Irish sounding Cuban gal you'll ever meet. My parents emigrated in 1961, so I was born here. I have been very involved with the U.S., the National Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for years. Recently joined, at the end of last year, joined the Morris County Chamber, so just the synergy of how this is rolled out in unison has been like amazing. Like Lorena and Ed said, that we are aware that there are needs within the Hispanic community, and we are equally aware of all the benefits and power that the Morris County Chamber can bring to that community. So we're here to align the two.
Exactly. And the goal for today is more of a sounding board. I mean, because it's our first one, we really haven't developed the mission statement. All of the committees inside the chamber have a mission statement. So we really want to start to work on that. We really want to be able to get some volunteers that maybe come out of this to help us draft a really good message, right? Because we don't want to be just a sounding board here and not take any action outside of this committee. We want to really be able to take some of the ideas and thoughts and things that we come up with and really take them and implement them within the Morris Chamber or possibly within the community as a whole. So if you are part of any of the other committees in the chamber, you will know that they are very well thought out, they're very well planned, and we usually have subcommittees that are part of that. So we are very interested in, you know, having some open dialogue about what you guys think the mission statement should be. I mean, we don't want to take too much time out of this meeting, but I'm going to give you a breakdown of what we're hoping to do with the entire agenda for today, and then have how we want to have volunteers afterwards. One of the other things we want to do is come up with some sort of chart for the Hispanic Affairs programming that we want to have. You know, what kind of speakers should we have? What kind of topics should we be looking at, so that we can use this particular meeting for those speakers to come in and present. And maybe, who knows, maybe we eventually have a larger, more broadly attended event that we can have, kind of like the Women in Business program does their quarterly events. Maybe that's something we can aspire to have. So my sights are set pretty big. I'm kind of ambitious that way, but I know I have to start crawling before we run. So, you know, Catherine and Ed are really good about having great ideas with me as well. And then we all kind of balance each other out and saying, okay, we'll start slow and steady. Right. So Catherine is full of amazing ideas because she's been so involved with the Hispanic Chamber in the US. So that's like awesome. My involvement was more with the subset of the Ecuadorian committee. So like it was just like very, very small. We also want to do some brainstorming. You know, we want to talk about the trends, the challenges, the opportunities that we want to talk about. There are some topics that are maybe a little bit more taboo, that border on that line of like the political spectrum. So we don't want to turn this into a political debate. We don't want to turn this into a political battle of this side versus that side, what's right, what's not right. But we want to use this to constructively create some sort of discussion around those trends, challenges, and opportunities that we see so that we can create the agendas and the topics that we want to have later on. And of course, we want to see, this is to Catherine's point, you know, we want to talk about how do we define success for this committee? Like, are we looking at a 6-month goal or 3-month goal or a year goal? How long does it really take to us really have a successful committee and to show what we've been able to do. And at the end, we want to really leave with coming up with 3 survey questions that we can then send out to our masses of the entire membership. What are the 3 survey questions that we can ask the entire membership as a whole that would help us develop and enhance the topics that we kind of brainstorm around here? Does that kind of make sense for everybody? Awesome. And I know that we have a guest today, Jessica, Padilla Gonzalez, right? From the Housing Partnership, I believe.
Yes.
Welcome. Why don't we start with her presentation and then we can break it up so this way we don't cut over into her time. Does that sound good? I know you just got on. Can I throw you right on or do you want a few minutes?
I wasn't aware I was going to make a presentation, but I could talk about who we are, what we do.
Not a presentation. Sorry, your introduction. That's what I was going to say, not a presentation.
I could put something together really quick. But my name is my name is Jessica Padilla Gonzalez. I'm the executive director at the Housing Partnership. We are a HUD-approved NeighborWorks home ownership center. So our mission is to help people purchase their first homes through education and financial coaching. We offer our services in both English and Spanish. And now we've also started working with the State of New Jersey Housing Finance Agency to offer free rental counseling services as well to all populations, including people who may be undocumented. Unfortunately, that doesn't provide access to funds, which is what the majority of our rental counseling calls are coming from, but we're able to help people preserve their credit and really start communication with landlords. The other services that we offer is free foreclosure counseling in both English and Spanish. And again, we're offering everything now remotely, so we're pretty much serving all of northern New Jersey. And then the final service that we offer is we administer the sale of deed restricted properties, so Mount Laurel units. Our organization works with 9 municipalities, and we have about 590 affordable homes that we help to sell. We're also looking to increase that to rentals and trying to find new partners. The really important part about our organization is we're located in Dover. So we have a large Hispanic population here. And then I just started having conversations with the new administration. So it's kind of a perfect time for us to kind of see what we could do in the community. And I'm really excited about that. So thank you for having me.
That is awesome. So before we get too far along, how about, I know Catherine, Ed, and I have already introduced ourselves and now Jess has, so why don't we kind of go around the room? I'm going to go off the squares the way that I see them on my end, just to kind of call people out so that you guys can introduce yourselves. Just give us like a 30-second blurb on your name, how, you know, why you want to get involved in your company. And that way we can make sure that we can have enough time for everything else on the agenda. So Glenn, why don't we go with you first?
Let's see. Good morning, everyone. My name is Glenn Marthins. My company's Commercial Furniture Resources. We're located in Wharton. And my assistant is Jackie Gomez. And I wanted her to be here, but she is on vacation. So I said, let me step in. Plus, we have a warehouse and an installation crew that has a lot of Hispanic people. So I wanted to kind of listen in and be part of the group today. And being in the chamber with my own business, Milton Terry Associates, which is office furniture, the women in business, was always the best run chamber. And I can see with the two women that are running this that you guys are in good hands. So it's a pleasure to sit back and listen to you all. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for the compliment. All right, Tom, how about you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Werder. I'm the Executive Director of Morris Arts, based in Morristown, but now based in my backyard. We are the County Arts Council for Morris County, and you may be aware that we just came off of a 1.5-year program where we were working with about 25 other nonprofit organizations, mostly arts organizations, but some other organizations as well. And we did a focus on Latino arts and culture with a program we called Latinx Conexiones. It had its main part of our programming for that was last fall. And we thought that some of those connections might be beneficial to this group. And Marcela Claros is on our staff. She worked very closely with that program. And she may pop onto this meeting after she comes up with something else, but really happy to be here today. Thanks.
Thank you. Benjamin?
Good morning, everyone. Benjamin Stark. I'm a financial planner at TJP Wealth Solutions. My last name is very German, but I promise my dad was actually born in Colombia. So I do have
lots of Germans in South America. Lots of Germans.
Right.
Yeah, from World War.
That's exactly it, Lorena. You hit the nail on the head. My grandfather came over to Colombia during World War II. So yeah, we do financial planning for small business owners, and you know, I was very grateful that Ed reached out to me to be a part of this opportunity, and I'm excited to be a part of this new committee and help with the initiatives.
Awesome, thank you. Casey Carpenter.
Hola, buenas. Yo no soy latina, pero tengo un gran afinidad con la comunidad latina. So I'm not Latin by blood, but I have a large affinity for personas de color y latinas. Quiet as it's kept, I was a Spanish major, and at one point I was so fluent, I was dreaming in Spanish. And I love it. I know, I did a semester abroad in Barcelona. So this committee excites me because I think that it can truly do great things and just expand, you know, who are Latin people? What is everybody all about? And I will tell you, every time I go into New York City in the subway, somebody goes, señorita, perdón, ¿hablas español? And I have to go, okay, depende. You know, if you speak slowly enough, I'll say yes. If you're speaking really fast, I'll go, But yeah. My last success, I helped someone successfully take the New Jersey Transit to where they were going. It was very confusing, and I helped them interpret the board.
Thank you, Casey. We're so happy you're with us. Joella Morales, how about you?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joel Morales. I'm part of Macro Consulting Group. We're financial planners in Parsippany, New Jersey. We primarily help high net worth individuals nearing retirement and while in retirement. One of the things that we do like to say is plan first, then invest, don't invest and hope. Financial planning is unfortunately one of those areas in your life that there aren't any second opportunities. So we do really value our relationship with our older, more traditional client base. And also one of the things that we'd like to say is why not take that journey with us? We do help individuals retire on a monthly basis. So why not take that journey with someone who's been down that road before and help us or help you steer your way through there. So Joel Morales, Macro Consulting.
Awesome. And, you know, that's also a topic that we're going to touch into, because I know we talked about like the long-term outlook is very different in the Hispanic community than sometimes in other cultures. So we're definitely talk about that a little bit too.
Right.
Brian? Brian?
Hi, Brian Martinez. I'm an insurance manager with PwC out of Florham Park, specializing in the private company services group. I'm actually a part of the Latino Inclusion Network within PwC. So we already kind of like try to figure out like what we can do in the Latin community, and this is definitely going to help come up with ideas, because I feel like there's not much, because it's mostly out of New York that we find events and everything. So we're hoping to like be able to figure out what we can do for the Latin community in Morris County. So I figured this is something great to at least attend even if I can't volunteer my services. So definitely excited to see what comes out of these meetings.
Awesome, thank you. You think you're going to get ideas from us, we might get ideas from you. So
That's all it is. Just sharing ideas.
It's all good. Daniel, you want to go ahead?
Ari, I'm Dan Umana. I'm with SB1 Bank. I'm a commercial lender, and I lend in Morris and Sussex County, Dover being one of those towns where there's a lot of lending, a lot of multi-units. And I've been running into the fact that there's a lot of new Hispanic investors in the area. So it's been, constantly, and now they have their cash. They've been working, first generation, they've been working to have some cash, but they don't know the ins and outs of lending yet. So I've been, kind of hand-holding them through the whole process from beginning to end. Megan reached out to me about this council. I wasn't aware. I was part of the Leadership Morris class of 19. So she reached out, hey, I hope you can join us. So kind of put it on my calendar, and here I am.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us on our very first round. Roxy, you want to go ahead?
I'm unmuting myself. Hi, Roxanne Camajo with Lakeland Bank. I'm a community development officer. I got invited through Ed and Megan. We've done events with Morris County, presentations on small business. We've done events with Jessica at the Housing Partnerships with home ownership. So I think this is another opportunity for our bank, Lakeland Bank, to continue this relationship in Morris County. And we are a member as well for the chamber. So I look forward to working with you all.
Welcome. Holly, you want to go?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Holly Dinnany. I am with a nonprofit called Family Partners of Morris and Sussex County. We are actually a part of the Children's System of Care. We work for the state, and we provide support services to families who have youth with challenges from the ages of 3 to 21, and from any range of challenge, be it mental health, behavioral, substance abuse. We cover a lot of territory, but I'm very grateful to be a part of this group because we service Morris and Sussex County. We service more families in Morris than in Sussex, but my team, I am fortunate, we have 6 bilingual team members. And typically what we do pre-COVID is we go into the home and provide support for the family, for the parents who might be struggling with what the next move is. It's very overwhelming for the caregivers as well. But I'm pleased to say that since the COVID, we have done a lot of things, a lot more things as far as public education and support groups go. And we've expanded, which is totally logical, into the world of Spanish speaking groups. So we have Spanish support groups. We do a weekly educational workshop, which pre-COVID was monthly. Now it's weekly, and we started 2 months ago. Once a month, it's in Spanish. So awesome. I'm on the front out here trying to get more, just more support and more avenues to support our family, or the Spanish-speaking families. And we've gotten involved with groups like Connecting Dover, which I'm sure you're aware of. There's a lot of really terrific networking groups out there.
Thank you, Holly. I have to keep it to 30 seconds. Thank you so much. No, that's okay. I'm just trying to watch the time. Thank you so much. I don't mean to be rude. All right. I believe I have 2 people left. Ivelisse, how do you pronounce it exactly? I don't want to mess it up.
Ivelisse.
Ivelisse. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ivelisse Perez. I am an outreach account manager of New Jersey's Clean Energy Program, and I am their newest acquisition. I'm trying to get the message out there about incentives available for commercial and industrial small businesses. We also have residential incentives for clean energy programs, upgrades of equipment to make it more energy efficient. And I am going to be working with communities, minorities, Hispanic outreach, and that kind of wave.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And the last but not least, I don't know your exact name because I only see initials on your name.
Is it Bachman? Me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Maritza Bachman. I am Cuban, born in Cuba. So my daughters are first generation Americans, which I'm very proud to say. I work at NERWESCAP, which is a nonprofit. We're across 5 different counties. I have my own business on the side, an internet marketing business. And last year I decided I really wanted to help the Hispanic community. When this came up, I thought, wow, this is great. So I wanted to be part of it. So
well, thank you. And Maritza, is it with a Z or with an S?
Z.
Okay, so I think I changed your name. So I think you should be good there.
Oh, thank you. Perfect.
You're welcome. You're welcome. There you go. Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves and being a part of this. So we have about 40 minutes, give or take, in the remaining of the agenda time. And I think, Catherine, if you're cool with that, maybe we should talk a little bit about some of the trends and challenges and opportunities that we want to cover during the
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'll do a screen share, right?
Yes, please.
Start.
Yes, and we'll allow for about 10 minutes on this a week before we move on to the next topic. So,
all right, can everyone see it?
Yep.
Is it visible? All right, so
yes.
this is a work in progress. You can see the version number on the bottom, and even it was a platform mission statement. So as Lorena said, we're still crafting, but this was just to kind of get the creative juices flowing. So as an initial snapshot of what we saw as a programming focus for the committee, we put it into the following lanes. So education, business, finance, health, government, and advocacy. And we wanted to make sure that we were properly representing Morris County as a whole. So while this is the Morris County Chamber, we wanted to make sure that there is a legitimate allocation towards businesses, but we also want to be community focused as well, as Latinos like to be. So there's a 30% allocation in terms of our hypothetics. So we felt as if we could together come up with, and this is again, initial brainstorm. So, and they become like pillars of programming we can develop, speakers we can look for, guidance or assistance that we see within the businesses and the community. If there are additional ones, we are more than eager to hear thoughts. But this is just an overall snapshot of where we think the committee can serve.
And one of the reasons, and you guys feel free to unmute yourselves once we get to the open discussion dialogue thing, but one of the things that we talked about between Ed, Catherine, and myself when we were kind of brainstorming as to why are we doing this, right? It's kind of like the big, what is it called? The gorilla in the room, right? Or the big, I forget the phrase. Like I mean, so bad at phrases. Like I always get them wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. Like there's always that taboo topic that you're not supposed to be talking about and you're not supposed to be discussing. And I know that growing up in New York City, in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, there was a huge reluctance to joining other business associations, either from a fear of they don't really want to help me, they want to take my information, or are they really out to get me, or like it's almost a distrust that's kind of built in. So you only can communicate more within your own group rather than kind of expanding outside of it. I would have loved to say that I've seen a difference in that, but even growing up as an adult, you know, not necessarily looking in a particular way, I've joined Hispanic associations in the past where it's like, oh wait, you're a white person here, and like why, you know, there's like a little bit of like a discrepancy and like a judgment zone there, and we're trying to make sure we kind of get it all out there that the reason we're doing this is because we want that inclusivity, and we really want to focus on the reasons why we think businesses that are Hispanic owned should be part of events and communities like the Morris County Chamber, because there's so much benefit, not only from the learning tools that they can get, but from the knowledge that they can gain about tools available and education available for them and their employees. So these are kind of the things that we talked about as being our pillars, but of course we have to fine tune, you know, which ones do we want to touch on first, which ones do we cross over to first, and how do we kind of fine tune that? So that's kind of where we were hoping we would open it up right now for another 5 to 10 minutes of what's your feedback? Do you guys think this kind of covers it? What do you think we should be covering first? You know, and we'll kind of leave it up. And I think we're all pretty good about, you know, not talking over each other. So you guys can unmute yourselves. Jessica?
I have a question. So if we're offering, let's say these services or education, or will it be offered in Spanish as well? I think that's the first question I have right off the bat.
I think the goal would be that, yes, I mean, I think we have enough people within the chamber that do speak Spanish, or within the community that we can reach out to, so that if we do end up having some of these services, our goal would be to have them in Spanish. I mean, Ed, Catherine, I don't think I'm speaking solely out of place on that, correct?
No, and as most organizations are doing, I think it really depends on what the specific programming is and who the intended audience is. That we have to make sure if we're developing programming that it can indeed resonate and reach the community that we're looking to reach. So I think it's a little bit of give and take. So let's say a hypothetical, if we had a buyer from let's say a Fortune 500 that comes in to speak on business opportunities and how to apply for MBE certification. The person might not be Latino who's coming from that organization, so that would obviously be in English, right? So I think give and take, but the goal would be to have a significant component of it in Spanish, right?
Yeah. And I know that we talked a little bit about like the restaurants were really hit with the pandemic, but a lot of them don't really utilize the social media aspect to their strength. We have a ton of social media platforms and training within the chamber. Wouldn't it be great if we could find a speaker that can actually do some of that training in Spanish to help, you know, the restaurant owners that are maybe not proficient in English, but understanding, you know, Facebook even, like it's so basic and it's so easy, but it's not something that you know how to use to place ads if you just don't know how to do it because you've never done it before. So something as small and simple as that could be a huge benefit to a small restaurant within the local community so that they can advertise about their sales and their specials. So.
Yeah. I would say that like this is the good focus for the content, but I think one overarching focus that shouldn't be ignored, and I think is just going to be throughout, is how to get this information to people and how to get people interested in stuff, because like you said, there's going to be the distrust in like these things, and also just access to information is another barrier. So that's definitely going to be something that's throughout to make sure that we're effective and efficient in how people can get access and participate in these items.
I totally agreed. And I think that's where one of the areas that Ed is really strong in, right? I mean, he's super involved in the community. So he does a lot of face-to-face within his time at the economic development or outside in his personal. So like, he is very like boots on the ground kind of, you know, person. Like that's how I see that. But I think we're also going to have to rely a lot on our partners that are going to be part of this. For example, Jessica in the housing partnership, you know, those of you that are working with the banks, that are with the financial planners that have business owners, I think it's going to be a lot of word of mouth spreading, because again, if you're a restaurant, and I focus right now on restaurant owners just because there is so many of them that are Hispanic owned in that particular Dover sector, right? If we're just focusing on that for a second. They're not necessarily checking their emails every single day. So doing a mass email marketing campaign is not necessarily going to be the way to focus and target them. Doing Facebook ads is probably not going to be the way to reach them either. They're much more of, I need a flyer, I need it in front of me, I need somebody that I know that I trust and I value their opinion on to tell me that I should be attending this event. So I think that's really the biggest weakness that I see for this committee is, do we have enough boots on the ground? Do we have enough community partners to help us relay that message?
If I can jump in, just being a chamber member and being so close to Dover and having so many employees from Dover, I'm a marketing, I graduated as a marketing person a long time ago. Networking was the key for everything I did. And having access to the chamber and all the chamber events, of having that flyer disseminated through all the chamber events is huge, because we all know the Hispanic community at some point in some employees are always touching that end. So I don't see it, this is a great start, and disseminating it through the chamber is going to be huge for you in terms of the boots on the ground.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing is, you know, making sure that our membership as a whole understands that this is a new endeavor and helping us spread the message in a very different way than traditional businesses, you know, like really printing out those flyers and dropping it off at the local Mexican restaurant that you go have takeout, you know, and going out and visiting those local businesses that you are, you know, that you normally shop at, but so that they know, because again, it's such a different way of reaching business owners when they're kind of secluded in there. So if you guys have any ideas or any other thoughts as to how to get that message across, that would be super helpful. But I think that we're going to learn and go as we go.
And our intent is to serve. I'm fluent in English and Spanish. And as the Director of Business Resources for the Chamber, I'm going to do everything possible, from translating flyers, doing them in Spanish and English, and really serving that population, because I know a lot of business owners come into this country, they open their restaurant, They open their stores. They really don't know the English language. So really, one of our objectives is really serve them and do the material in English, in Spanish, and then connect them. And myself, I will be on the ground and hoping to connect with these business owners to make them feel that sense of community and that sense of belonging. We want them to feel I belong, and language will not be a barrier.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and my Spanish is really bad because, you know, I have not used it as much as I should, but hey, it gives me an opportunity to get it back because it's been a while since my mom passed away. I don't speak it every single day as much as I used to. So it's definitely something that we want to make sure that we're, you know, we are definitely going to put a focus on putting everything in both languages, because we don't want to exclude those that are non-English speakers but are still business owners, because as we know, in certain parts of the state, you don't necessarily have to be speaking in English in order to be able to get the banking and the financing and everything else that you need to do, because there are so many Spanish resources. So we do want to make that part of the focus that we're doing.
If I have a quick question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Roxy.
Thank you. Just recently I read an article, I think it was just yesterday, about marketing. And one of the top things that I read was that about 90% of Hispanics listen to urban radio, so like Mega. And you're a business owner, you're inside your bodega. I think that might be another opportunity down the road, you know, whether you're on, you know, driving, going to the next job, or you're in a stationary job, you know, a storefront. I think that might be something to look into. And I could share that article with you. It's about 1.5 years old, but it goes to show you how urban radio is one of the best ways to communicate besides social media. Just wanted
I think you're totally right on that, because it's such much more community inclusive in that. You're totally right on. Holly, you were going to say something?
And I'll be quick because you can tell I'm chatty. But one thing that we've found through our organization and also in reaching the Hispanic community, and there's another organization in Morristown that's done work in the community for undocumented as far as food distribution and what have you. But texting is another way that's harder. It's more accessible, I think, to many families. And recently, the group in Morristown I know has identified a group that can do like mass texting the way that we do emails, which is what we're having some luck with, because again, as you said, technology is so different, of course, family to family, but we're finding that through text and WhatsApp is more likely to be seen than emails or websites or social media. So that's just something else to keep in mind. I'm happy to share that information with you if you're ever interested, because instead of email, it appears to be that we're having more luck with text messages.
That's an interesting point too. Yeah. And Maritza, you were going to say something as well.
I was just going to ask, I'm not from the Dover area. Is there a Spanish newspaper that gets distributed out there? That might be another way to include some of this information. I don't know. I know there's the Voice. I don't remember where, but that might be something we could look into.
That's actually a really great point. That's really, really good.
If we start working, if we want to focus in Dover, again, I know I live in Dover as well as work here, and we used to have a letter from the mayor that went out. So I'm pretty sure we could get the mayor to do flyers for us and be a part of it as well. So do direct mailing to households here. So that's.
And I mean, I only picked on Dover just because it's the one that I'm most familiar with, because it's the closest to my home base. And it's the one that I've seen that had the biggest impact, not saying that we have to stay in that area, but, you know, being that they're part of the Morris area and they just kind of, Morristown and Florham Park and everything, they seem to be so much more corporate, you know, driven, whereas Dover's still this little tiny community because of where the train station ends and starts and everything else. It just seems like it's a little bit more close knit, and I could be totally wrong on that, but you know, that's just where I was going with it. Any other thoughts on this right here, or is everybody kind of on the same page with us? Any thoughts, other additional feedback? Catherine, anything else you want to add?
I think within there's a segment of programming that is educational to let's combat stereotypes, which is 2020, can't even believe that word would come out, but combat stereotypes, and to applaud and encourage Anglo businesses to recognize the power of the Hispanic community and to help them better understand them as a customer base.
Yeah. And that's right on. And I think that's got to be one of the other things we touch on too, is because if you look at like Glenn and Holly, right, like they have business employees that are part of this community and they are involved with that community. So that's why they want to be part of this. We definitely don't want the perception to be, it's like, okay, you're not Hispanic, you're not supposed to be in this meeting. You know, like we really want it to be all about how to promote the Hispanic business owner to understand some of the other challenges, because they are different than a traditional business. So that's awesome. I give you guys kudos for being here too. All right, so then with that point, let's move on to the next thing on my agenda that I want to have before we run out, because I don't want to run out of time, is we would like to come up with 3 survey questions that we would send out to the membership as a whole to help us define the topics for these particular programming focuses that we want to have. So if we can just brainstorm a little bit, I can share the screen and I can take some notes. What are some of the things that we want to maybe ask in a survey? From the community as a whole in the chamber side, like from the Morris community Thoughts? You know, do we want to start off with things like, do you have Hispanic employees? Or do we want to keep it more general, just so that we can come up with some of a list of topics that we want to cover?
I think just the basic question of, do you identify yourself as Hispanic? Because sometimes we can make assumptions based on somebody's last name, whether or not they're Hispanic. And we might have more people who would be interested in contributing. So do you identify a Hispanic? You know, like, I think that would be a great first question.
Okay, and I'm just gonna write them all down right now, and then we can always come back and filter them out. Do we wanna ask as far as, are you a minority-owned business, or do we want a minority owned or Hispanic owned business, or do we want to say, do you have minority or Hispanic employees?
Yeah, because as you're saying, Lorena, I'm thinking of it kind of like the 2 prongs of it. So the programming that goes directly to, let's say, end user. And my apologies, the faces have shifted. PwC, who said that they're looking for programming even internally. So identifying organizations that would benefit from the chamber's programming, enhancing their relationship with their Hispanic employees.
How about I'm sorry. How about asking if they have bilingual employees?
Good.
Because I know that's one of our issues here at Norwestcop, that we're trying to get even more bilingual employees on.
That's a good one. Okay.
How about asking how much of their business is generated by maybe a Hispanic clientele or a Hispanic customer base? You know, if you're looking at particular industries and they're saying only 2% of my revenue is generated by some sort of a Hispanic consumer, then you're going to identify there's a need there. Why aren't Hispanics going there? I mean, I do financial planning. I know first and foremost, a lot of Hispanics are not trusting of banks or financial planners and advisors, and they would rather stack their cash in a mattress. And yeah, that's great for a certain amount of time. And I guess that was great 40, 50, 60 years ago, but that's not how it is today. So, you know, how much of your business is generated, and you could identify the whole.
That's actually a really good question. I like that. Any other thoughts? You guys can all mute yourselves. You guys don't have to keep muting yourselves. Kay, I was reading your text. Kay, you're actually German and Colombian too. That's awesome.
Yeah, my grandpa was from Colombia, but a lot of my family speaks Spanish, but I do not, unfortunately. Like a little bit. But I'm trying to think about this survey, and I guess my question is, what kind of answers are you looking to get from it? Like where the deficiencies are?
The idea would be to come up with what topics do we want to cover in the events that we want to do.
I really liked Joel's idea, and I was going to pitch in something similar. Do you do business with the Hispanic community? Are you looking to fill that gap? Like he said, and like what you said, if you don't get a lot of business from Hispanic customers, then how can we improve that? So I think that would be definitely a really good question to ask.
I have a question. Do we know how big the market is of the Hispanic community? in the, say, Morris County? Because that's something you want to let people know how big the potential is for the market.
Yeah, so as of right now, we actually did ask that question to Megan. Right now, they don't have metrics like that because it just wasn't a question that they asked, right?
I can certainly look in the data that we buy through the EDC. That's a really great question. I mean, unfortunately, some of the demographic information is old because the census is actually being done now. But with some of the data that we do buy may have some updated estimates. Are you talking about the number of people here, kind of the buying power, Glenn? Kind of within, yeah.
And how much revenue is generated by the Hispanic businesses in the area?
Right. Yeah, I can certainly, we might have to contract with a smaller marketing firm because sometimes that's very niche type data. Sometimes the data gal, but if anyone knows of like a niche kind of marketing company that does that, we could certainly explore that. I think that would be really powerful information
Maybe
to
the
have.
chamber or the state has that information.
No, it would be like a consulting firm that would do it. Because so we could certainly brainstorm. I'll see what we have. But it might be at a larger scale, that's all.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question because that does impact a lot. And I didn't hear who was talking that.
No, yeah, it was just me. And I was just going to say that even if we can't figure out like revenue generated by Hispanic market, even just saying like from a census standpoint, like how much of Morris County is essentially Hispanic, that there's an untapped market there, whether you do business with them or not, just knowing that Morris County there's a good population that is Hispanic would help too.
And actually the number of businesses that are in the area. I mean, I think that would impress a lot of people. How many actual Hispanic businesses is going to be a bigger number than people expect.
Well, and I think that's one of the questions that, when Catherine and Ed and I were talking, I mean, I think it's kind of hard to know how many actually Hispanic-owned businesses there are because they're not, I was trying to Google like a percentage for the Morris County or even just for the state of New Jersey. There's not a ton of data out there.
Yeah, I just a quick search. So NJ Biz did a report in 2017 and it identified 116,000 Hispanic-owned businesses in New Jersey that contribute 12 billion in revenue to the economy. Wow. So that's pretty good. And if you look at it in contrast, same year statistics from the National Hispanic Chamber, there's 4.37 million in the country with 700 billion in revenue buying power. So New Jersey represents well.
Okay, all right, but those are from 2017, but we can always use those.
And that's New Jersey as a whole. So NJ Biz is getting it obviously from somewhere, so that'd be interesting to see where they're using the staff from.
Gotcha. But that's a great question.
Yeah, I think a good question would be how do they mainly get their information, whether it's from social media or newspaper or video casts or emails or stuff like that. Understanding like how information is received with the community would be helpful in a marketing standpoint.
That's actually a good one as well. Okay. Yeah, I mean, my goal would be to come up with 3 simple questions that we can send out as a survey monkey to basically narrow down. I don't think as a chamber right now, we don't have a really good pulse on how big the Hispanic involvement is within our members, right? So for example, like Glenn, you have a lot of Hispanic employees. Holly, obviously you're working within the Hispanic population, but I think as a whole, we don't really know that. So trying to find a nice way of asking that without seeming, and again, there's always that fine line of like, am I asking and overstepping and asking the wrong question? Am I going to insult somebody, or I'm just trying to gather data? I'm just trying to kind of get an idea of where it is. So asking somebody, do you identify as Hispanic versus do you have Hispanic employees or do you have bilingual employees? I mean, those 3 questions kind of are almost the same thing. So narrowing that down to the question that we would want to ask, my thought would be, do you have Hispanic and or bilingual employees? But does that kind of cover both? Because you don't necessarily have to be bilingual to be Hispanic.
I'd say data-wise, that would probably be the best choice, asking do you have Hispanic or bilingual employees? Just because, especially with a survey, you want to be clear with things like that. And if you ask like, oh, are you Spanish? And you might say, oh, no, I'm not Spanish, but you might have a ton of employees who do, and that completely then you'd completely miss that data point.
And it should really be Spanish speaking bilingual employees, because if you're speaking German, that's really not going to help us for the purpose of this committee. So, okay, so I think that should be one of the questions. This way that kind of, you know, takes those out of the equation. How much of your business is generated by a Hispanic customer base, or are you interested in increasing the Hispanic customer base? While I like that question, I don't know if our members would actually have that answer. Like, I don't know how many of them would actually know how much of their customer base is actually segmented down by the Hispanic market.
Maybe just asking how would you like to do more business with Hispanic customers, something like that?
I believe you have to look at that the other way around too, where there are Hispanic businesses that are looking to break out of just that community because their client base is only, especially in restaurants where it's only really Hispanics going to the restaurant, and they're looking to branch out and, you know, bring in new customers that are other ethnicities. So sorry.
Wait, Jose Ortiz, you did not
Ortiz,
get, I was going to say, you did not introduce
no.
yourself. I have no idea who you are. You're just a voice speaking. How about you give us a quick intro?
No, so I've actually sent something in the chat, but it hasn't gone through yet. I have a really bad bandwidth right now, so my connection is terrible. But I'm Jose Ortiz. I work with Jersey Central Power and Light as a regional external affairs consultant. So I represent about 19 different municipalities out of our Dover district in northern New Jersey. I'm looking forward to working out with all you. I won't take that any more time to introduce myself as we're kind of progressed in this meeting, but I used to actually work as a restaurant consultant for about 15 years before working for JCP&L. And I know that is an issue where I was saying that there are Hispanic restaurants, and I know the big focal point you guys were speaking about is restaurants, you know, that they're trying to branch out. They don't know how to do it because they don't have that capacity, or they don't have that type of exposure. So it's something to look at, you know, on the flip side as well.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with the winter coming, you know, if things continue as they are and we don't have that outdoor seating, making sure that they promote themselves for those takeout offerings for those commuters that are still out on the road, and trying to just generate some of those sales that people don't realize, you know, that are still available, that people will take advantage of. Okay, so how much of your business, and I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, because I got so lost as to who was speaking that I didn't write down the question that you were talking about. Your point was to ask the question about business generated.
Are you speaking to me?
Yeah, I think Jose, if I'm gathering what you're saying is that it works both ways of being able to develop kind of stronger resources for romancing your existing Hispanic customer base, but equally for those looking to expand outside of their pocket community. How do they giving them the resources and the insights to attract new audiences, right?
You nailed it, Catherine.
Would that be the question then? Are you looking to increase your customer base to the Hispanic community?
Well,
outside the Hispanic community.
Outside. Because like, even if like here's Cuban Catherine O'Hara, I run a marketing firm and I have Gen Pop customer base, and the irony is when people find out I'm Hispanic, they assume I'm a Hispanic marketing firm. I like Hispanics do deal with Gen Pop.
Okay. But that's not really going to help. That will help us when we're dealing with the businesses that are already coming back in, right? That won't necessarily help us from within the Morris membership.
Yeah, but he's saying, if I'm understanding Jose correctly, is if they're strong and known within the Hispanic community and they're
okay.
Like they know that network, how do they expand beyond it?
Okay.
And I think that's important. I'm looking at some statistics here, you know, and the Latino is the fastest growing business market, 1.5 trillion buying dollars, and it's grown by 203% since the year 2000. And something that Roxy said, I'm looking at radiomatters.org, And they've realized that most Latinos, 42.3 million, will get their information through radio. They're connected to their Spanish radio, and they're
La
saying
Mega.
most of them will
La
say
Mega.
that's how they get their information.
Yep. All right, so then that's okay. That's the radio. It seems like it's going to be coming back to that. Let's see. Oh, what's this Hispanic? So obviously maybe this one. How do you receive? How do you share your information? In what ways do you share your information? In what ways do you share your information other than in email? Just so we can get an idea as to how they're actually reaching out to other people. Would that be? So then we would ask, do you have Hispanic or Spanish speaking bilingual employees? Are you looking to increase your customer base either inside or outside the Hispanic community, so that it covers both? And then in what ways do you share your information other than email? Do we need to add another one? Do you think those three are enough to get us some idea? Or should we ask what topics would you like us to add? Like, the survey questions is where I always struggle.
I think it's important about the service that we can offer or they need. Maybe we are missing something over there.
All right, so what topics?
What are the most pressing challenges for your business? You know, kind of a rank order response.
And if this is getting, you know, kind of pushed out to the chamber and not necessarily specifically to the Spanish business owners, I think Spanish business owners don't know what they don't know. You know, I think they don't know how to market. You know, they want to keep it kind of close to the vest. They're not, again, going back to, they're not trusting of maybe certain groups or whatnot, and they would rather take their information from someone that they are familiar with, whether or not that information is good or bad. They're just more willing to take it from that individual or individuals because they have a relationship with them. So again, I think it's more of an education base, not necessarily asking them, how can we help you grow your business to open up new doors? They're not, I think a lot of business owners, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think they even know there's a problem. Maybe they just haven't opened that up yet to experience that there's a problem. They've been doing it this way for so long, and that's all they know. And like we said, they're not going to use social media. They're not going to use emailing. So how do they know that there's an issue or there's a better way of going about it if they don't even know that to begin with? So I think it's basic information at first.
That's a great point. So even if I'm putting down what are your most pressing needs, they may not even know it. So is it really worth asking?
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Maybe phrase it in like interests, like maybe not necessarily like a need, or maybe like what are you currently interested in learning more about, essentially.
Now, let me just back up for a second, because if we're asking that question to the chamber as a whole, that's really more of a question that's going to satisfy the needs of the chamber as a whole. That's not necessarily targeting anything to do with the Hispanic market, because again, they're not the ones that are necessarily getting the survey question. So while I think this question is important, I don't think it's relative. Exactly. That would be like a round two once we have a list of Hispanic business owners that we can target. I think in reality, we need to identify who are the Hispanic members or Hispanic employee-based businesses that we have in the area. So do you have Hispanic or Spanish speaking bilingual employees? It's like a given. Are you looking to increase your customer base either inside or outside the Hispanic community? I think kind of covers both bases that we were talking about. And I think maybe if I had to pick a third one, it would be in what ways do you share information other than email, just from an FYI informational thing. But the first two I'm like sold on. I'm not sure about what the third one would be, because again, we're trying to make sure we learn where there are Hispanics hidden inside the Morris Chamber membership.
Yeah, that's important.
Can you just simply ask, are you a Hispanic business owner, or is that too blatant?
I don't think it's wrong to ask somebody if they're Hispanic. So it's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
a bad question.
Let's kind of cut to the punch, all right? You know,
Yeah, like,
kinda-
are you Hispanic or do you identify as Hispanic? And then this will give us, okay, great. Then we can have the conversation with them. What are you seeing as a problem? Because if we're gonna, I like the idea of going, for me personally, if we're gonna work with the Hispanic business owners, that's different than working with people who have Hispanic employees. You know, like, I feel like that's two different educational opportunities. So if I was an employer who had a large Hispanic base of employees, there's a lot of different things that I would want to learn versus if I am a Hispanic owned business and I want to increase my own business. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's two different great ways to help people. So if I'm a non-Hispanic and the base of my employees are Hispanic, I would want to be a better leader for my Hispanic employees. So how do I do that? How do I enhance that? That to me is a different track than me as a Hispanic business owner. What are the needs that I have? Because there's challenges.
I think that's a great point. So maybe these are the three questions. I think you've, I think
here's what I'm struggling with. It's who's the Hispanic people? Where are the Hispanic people? And then there's the other group who are the business owners and how can we help them? I think they're two distinct groups that need to be, here's the Hispanic people and what services they may need. And then here's the business owners and what services they may need. I think it's two distinct groups you have to separate to and how you market to them.
Absolutely. Right, but I think our focus, our biggest focus is really helping the Hispanic business owner. That's like the focus number one. It's not the Hispanic community as a whole. I think that basically is a side effect of what we're doing by helping the business owner. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like Catherine, Ed, do you guys kind of agree on that point?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is identifying the Hispanic business owner so that we can identify that as priority number one. And listen, if there's not that many of us within the Morris County Chamber, then, you know, the next best thing is to have how many of them are Hispanic or Spanish speaking bilingual employees, because then at least we can pivot to that and pivot to the employee training.
So what I'm thinking is you ask, are you a Hispanic owned company? And then you ask, and if they're not, you're asking, do you have Hispanic people in your business?
If
and
not,
then you walk it down.
Okay, so it's like, are you a Hispanic owned business? Yes
That's
or
the
no?
first question, right? And then what are your needs, maybe you could ask. And then if not, then do you have Hispanic people?
You have a large
employee,
Hispanic employee base. Then that'll capture both, and then it'll help us pivot where the needs are. Yeah.
And then you could ask what the Hispanic owners' needs would be to reach out to both Hispanics and non-Hispanics, if that's their goal.
Okay, so then we would have these 4 questions. That's okay that it's 4K, right? Yeah. It's not that big a deal to have.
That's not cumbersome.
Right?
I don't think that's cumbersome, no.
And just one question, is it really the focus of like Hispanic owned businesses, or do we want to also, like, if there's businesses with like senior leadership or management with Hispanic identified people, is it really are we just limiting ourselves to Hispanic owned businesses like that? That's my question. I'm not sure.
That's actually a really good point, because I'm a part of a national group of Hispanic, and they're talking about, my brain just spun 1,000 directions. They're talking about how to increase youth Hispanic leadership. So like if you have C-suite that Hispanic, how do you train them? But that's totally different. I'm sorry, but it's interesting that you said it, because that's a conversation that's happening nationally with all our nonprofits. But
yeah, but I think to Brian's point, like we can serve directly. There's obviously prongs, right, of the community we can serve within Morris County. We can serve Hispanic business owners directly, and for those that are within organizations that aren't quote unquote Hispanic run, but have a strength of Hispanic population within there, what can we do that aids that organization to feel the love, right?
Yeah, so I think these 4 questions would kind of help us get started, and then we can always go to the next topics of the top C levels. But I think to start off with, we're good. I want to be conscientious of our time. It is now 10:30 in the morning. I think this really gets us to a really good start. Thank you guys so much for joining us on our first meeting. Please make sure you put your meeting time for the next meeting, which I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure that Kay will get that out to you guys right away. If you have not put your information on the chat, Kay, can you send us a list of everyone that is in the committee for today, just so that we can have a list of who attended today?
We'll send you the list.
That would be awesome, just so that we can make sure we reach out to you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this, because I know the next meeting's coming in at 10:30. So thank you guys all so much. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you,
Guys,
guys.
everyone.
Well done,
Thanks,
Lori.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.